truly believe the history of this century forces me to believe to do nothing in Central America is to give the first communist stronghold on the North American continent a green light to spread its poison throughout this free and increasingly democratic hemisphere.
President Reagan's passionate desire to assist the Contra rebels in Nicaragua catches up with him in 1987, when questions of his involvement in the Irancontra scandal persist. As Washington enters the new year, it is reeling from earlier revelations in a Beirut newspaper that profits from arms shipments to Iran in 1985, intended to buy the hostages' release in Beirut, were used to fund the Contra War. First, Reagan steadfastly denies the charges.
The United States has not made concessions to those who hold our people captive in Lebanon, and we will not. The United States has not swapped boatloads of plane loads of American weapons for the return of American hostages, and we will not.
But as time goes on, his position wavers. Finally, Reagan withdraws from commenting publicly about the investigation.
I've told you there would be no answers on questions having to do with that until the Tower Commission has submitted its report next week.
In March of 1987, the commission, headed by Texas Senator John Tower, publishes its report, which immediately becomes a bestseller at the bookstores.
That the shipments by...
Then, beginning in April, the Senate Investigating Committee holds public hearings in order to get at the details of the operation. And these hearings make Robert McFarlane, Richard Secord, Oliver North, Fawn Hall, and John Poindexter household names.
What is involved is that in the course of the arms transfers, certain monies were taken and made available to the forces in Central America which are opposing the Sandinista government there.
I was not the only one who was enthusiastic about this idea, and Director Casey, he referred to it as the ultimate covert operation.
The hearings focus on a department in the White House called the National Security Council, or NSC. It was formerly headed by National Security Advisor Robert McFarlane, then by Admiral John Poindexter until his resignation in 1986, and their top aide, Oliver North.
The NSC was not and is not intended to make policy or to conduct operations. Its function is to advise the President and to assist him in the coordination and integration of domestic, foreign, and military policies relating to national security.
But according to the Tower report, the NSC overstepped its boundaries. It describes a sequence of events like this. National Security Advisor Robert McFarlane suggests a risky covert action to the President. Some members of his cabinet are opposed. The President takes some time to be convinced, but finally gives the go-ahead. Within the White House, there is little discussion about disaster public relations results should the plan leak out. Though the law requires that Congress be notified of the covert action, this is not done.
I said to the back of Admiral Poindexter, it looks like the Ayatollah is going to have to help the Nicaraguan freedom fighters a little longer.
How staffers like that could get loose to perform such operations strikes me as being absolutely remarkable.
By giving Iran what it wanted, military arms, the U.S. was hoping to get what it wanted, the return of American hostages in Beirut. Arms placed by the government at $12.5 million were sold to Iran at a marked-up price. The $12.5 million was deposited in the government account, and the profits were deposited in a Swiss bank account controlled by Richard Secord. These funds were then diverted to the Contras in Central America.
I don't think it was wrong. I think it was a neat idea.
I did not know at that time that there was any money involved. I only knew that we had received our $12 million for the weapons which we had agreed to sell. Then, a little later, when the Attorney General told me that he had come upon something that indicated that there was something to do with money in Swiss bank accounts.
Given the U.S. military presence in the Persian Gulf, the Reagan administration seems to be playing both sides of the fence in the Iran-Iraq war. The controversy centers on legal and ethical questions. Ethical, because the U.S. government seems to contradict its policy of not negotiating for released hostages. Legal, because Congress had outlawed covert funding by the government for the Contra War in Central America under the Boland Amendment.
We did not have the view that we were circumventing the Boland Amendment. We simply read the Boland Amendment and believed that it did not apply because we were private.
Then, in May, the hearings go live on national TV, and millions of Americans get caught up in the drama. The investigating panel fires many questions at the parade of witnesses.
$4.6 million you have to keep in the
position is as I stated it, not as you stated. So stop trying to change my story and move my story around. The facts are the facts.
And so in the Nuremberg trials, we said that the fact that the defendant...
May I please register an objection? I find this offensive. I find you're engaging in a personal attack on Colonel North, and you're far removed from the issues in this case. To make reference to the Nuremberg trials, I find personally, professionally, stational. I can no longer sit here and listen to this.
My question to you was, would that have made a difference? You're the person who surfaced it.
Don't get angry, counsel. I'm going to answer your question.
The passion to establish democracy in Central America is brought before the people.
Many of us got involved because we cared about those Nicaraguans willingly fighting, bleeding, and dying in the jungle so that someday they might be able to enjoy some of the freedoms we Americans take for granted every day.
I think it is shameful for the United States to be going around rattling a tin cup. I think it is shameful. I did it because the Contras were, as far as I knew, starving.
Under whose authority was the mission carried out? Did the president know?
You know, the buck stops here with me. I made the decision. I felt that I had the authority to do it. I thought it was a good idea. I was convinced that the president would, in the end, think it was a good idea.
I asked Admiral Poindexter directly, does the president know? He told me he did not.
I made a very deliberate decision not to ask the president so that I could insulate him from the decision and provide some future deniability for the president if it ever leaked out.
But it's the testimony of Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North that captures America's attention for 3 days. Many view him as the ultimate patriot. Others view him as arrogant lawbreaker. For a short time, he is propelled to the status of cult hero.
I came here to tell you the truth, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I am here to tell it all, pleasant and unpleasant. And I am here to accept responsibility for that which I did. I will not accept responsibility for that which I did not do.
And these operations were carried out in secret?
Well, we hope so.
They were covert operations?
Yes, they were.
And covert operations are designed to be secrets from our enemies?
That is correct.
But these operations were designed to be secrets from the American people?
Much of North's testimony centers on an altered memo that was traced back to him and his shredding of other documents that may have implicated President Reagan.
I shredded. I was never told not to shred. I shredded because I thought it was the right thing to do.
Fawn Hall, North's secretary, admits to altering some documents and concealing others from investigators.
Sometimes, like I said before, I believed in Colonel North, and there was a very solid and very valid reason that he must have been doing this. Sometimes you have to go above the written law.
CIA Director William Casey never appears before the committee, having died in May. But the excitement generated by the hearings lingers on, particularly the popularity of Oliver North.
I feel like they're going after a great American hero.
I think someday we'll find out that Ollie North is really doing what he thought was best for the country, regardless of what the lawyers think.
He is scary in that he believes he is outside of law and that none of the rules that we have set for our society apply to him.
In November, after the hearings, Congress issues its report criticizing Reagan's hands-off management style, which articulates goals without giving clear directions for how they are to be achieved.
Everybody in the White House suddenly begins asking themselves, how can we help him achieve this goal? And that's when you get these renegade operations, because people are out there trying to please the president.
The report recommends that all future presidential findings be presented in writing to Congress, and that the NSC not be allowed to engage in covert operations. And the president's long-awaited statement on his involvement comes in this address to the nation.
But I respect you too much to make excuses. The fact of the matter is that there's nothing I can say that will make the situation right. I was stubborn in my pursuit of a policy that went astray.
North and Poindexter are both convicted of criminal charges related to the Irancontra investigation. Because of CIA Director Casey's death and the destruction of key documents, some questions of possible Oval Office impropriety may never be answered.